Hey, anyone there? Sleepy Reader here. This is going to be my video about a convention called I Like Comic Con, which was held... Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here with some comic thoughts. Some thoughts on comics I've read in the past number of weeks. I'm not sure how many. Kind of a hodgepodge of things. Not everything I've read, but just some of the stuff I have a few things to say about. I'm going to start with kind of a eating my own words. When I did that 3-hour hangout with Matt from Wednesday Serial, I kind of dissed on Fred Van Lente a little bit. Not saying he's a horrible writer, but a writer who just never seems to write comic books that I find very satisfying. From Conan to some, I don't know, series I've read by him at Dark Horse and elsewhere, a few Marvel things. But this, and he wrote the first modern run or the recent run of Archer and Armstrong, and I wasn't a big fan of that. I mean, I read a few issues and then kind of gave up, and then really loved Archer and Armstrong when they were rebooted for a short while and written by Rafer Roberts. So even though he was writing it, I went ahead and put this on my pull. It's called Armstrong and the Vault of Spirits. Armstrong being one of 3 immortal brothers. He's kind of a little bit of Hercules and Samson and Volstagg from Asgard and that kind of thing. Who's the character from the King Henry play? The decadent character, the decadent older character. But it'll come to me later. But anyway, this offered a great one and done. I thought it was the beginning of a miniseries, but it seems to be all wrapped up in this one issue, which is a wonderful thing. Connects us to the history of Armstrong and his brothers and their lives throughout history, including biblical times in this case, and hooks it up to a modern little escapade, and of course involves alcohol. A vault full of wine and other spirits saved down through the millennia that only opens once a year, I think, or once every number of years. And all of Archer's, or many of his enemies come to attack him. Not Archer, Armstrong's enemies. So it's very well done, very well written, so my hat's off to Van Lente. Perhaps I've misjudged him. But anyway, the only, the art you can see here, it's okay. It's passable art. The colors and the layouts and the intensity of the art or the flavor of the art didn't terribly impress me, but they didn't get in the way of the story or anything. So I guess they did a good enough job. But and for me to like the writing despite the art is kind of a big thing. That doesn't always work for me. Sometimes I need the art to be good or to capture something to go for the whole thing. So anyway, if you happen to see this laying around, I think it's a pretty fun read. Another one that I was kind of casting some doubt about was this Marvel 2-in-1 with the Thing and the Human Torch. And I've now read the first 2 issues. When I was casting doubt about it on our little chat with Matt, I'd only read half of the first issue. And maybe, it was just because the writer Chip Zdarsky was having to set things up and stuff, but things really started to click, and this is really looking to be a fun romp superhero comic. One that I think can, could be given to a 12-year-old and enjoyed, and be given to me, a 56-year-old, and enjoyed. So, and it had wonderful art. I suppose the colors are a bit darker than my favorite colors, but it all worked. And yeah, I think it was a real pleasure art-wise. Although look at pages like that, they're a bit on the dark side. It probably all looked better digitally. But this stuff is great, these flashback scenes and everything. I like the way they're colored. So anyway, yeah, unfortunately, I have issue 3, but I haven't read it yet, and it has a new artist on it. And the art doesn't look bad, but it doesn't have that something special that the Jim Chung art had. And I guess this is kind of the Marvel way. You put kind of a star artist on it for a few issues, and then you just put just any old artist on a book. And then you reboot it halfway through the story, I suppose. As we've just heard in the news about Marvel rebooting, having a reboot coming up already in May, or a renumbering or something. Hopefully this story gets enough time to play out, and presumably it's a lead-in to the return of the full Fantastic Four eventually. Yeah, I guess Chip Zdarsky would make a good Fantastic Four writer after all. I was casting doubts on him before, but although I'd love to see Charles Soule or Tom Taylor on the Fantastic Four, someone like that, and they bring it back. Speaking of pulpy light adventures, the 5th and final issue of Skyborn finally came out, written and drawn, beautifully drawn by Frank Cho, and not badly written, but kind of a sketchy story with a lot of gaps and stuff you wish he'd spent more time on. But as a wrap-up issue for that, if you're able to accept that, this was a fun romp. It was a fun story. It was like the end of a big action movie. And for a big action movie, I was ready to accept that, and it was a lot of fun. And he's known for his, Frank Cho's known for sexy women, but the first 4 issues really did not focus on women at all. But there was this, in the 5th issue, was this great scene where this doctor or medical technician is staring at the woman's boobs. And I don't know if Cho was making fun of himself and his fans of good girl art, or whether he was making fun of people who are shocked by good girl art, or some combination of the two. There were no surprises in the way this ended or anything like that. There was kind of a cheat in the sense that the person who seemed to have been killed in the first issue, which was a big shocker that person was killed, it turned out to be fine. So, I could definitely see this being made into a movie, and maybe it would be even better in a movie, because actually 5 issues of a comic is not as long as a movie, at least a comic book told this way. And so maybe if they had a movie, they could flesh it out a bit more. Not that I have any knowledge that Skyborn has been optioned or anything, but it seems like an obvious kind of thing, except maybe the title sounds too much like a James Bond movie. Another comic I really enjoyed, kind of despite the art, was Monstro Mechanica. It actually has very good art. It's just I've been complaining all along that the art doesn't fit a story set in the Renaissance, maybe because it tends to be this kind of outlined art. And I started to really wonder if it was all done with like a computer program. We constantly get these, these 3 faces are all about the same. And there were other pages where I've noticed the same hand would appear panel after panel. Well, like right here, that's this exact same hand, right? Was a computer used to just move that hand from there to there? Yeah, like this was all one drawing, and then it was slid over and his head was moved, and that was the only difference. I'm not sure how this kind of art is done. And yet, despite my complaints about it, actually this art is growing on me. And the artist, however he does it and whatever cheats he's using, does a lot of good storytelling. Like, is this figure, that figure flipped and then the head just turned slightly? I don't know. Is there a computer program that lets people do that really easily? You could do it in Photoshop, I suppose, but there's probably some way to really mechanize the process. But look at this. This is good storytelling. It's good color. I think... No, there's a separate colorist. But anyway, and the writing is really good by Paul Allure. I know I've seen him somewhere else, but I don't know where. But I feel like I should keep an eye out for his comics. And while I don't feel like I'm getting the real Renaissance here, partially because of the art, partially maybe because of the nature of the story, I feel like I'm getting interesting bits about the Renaissance and just a really fun story to read, and a little different from anything else I've read. So yeah, another very pleasurable book. It's an Aftershock book, and I've talked about how I'm starting to worry that Aftershock books fade over time. But so far, up to issue 3, Monstro Mechanica has been very successful. I assume it's, well, I don't know. I guess it could be an ongoing. But it seems like a book with such an esoteric subject is not going to go on for years. But I'd love it if I were wrong. Okay, let me throw in a few things that didn't satisfy me so much before I get back to all the stuff I was loving, just because these are kind of books of interest. Snagglepuss, I continue to not really recognize the writing of Mark Russell, or the Mark Russell that I knew from the Flintstones, other than the fact that this is kind of an adult take using very childish characters from Hanna-Barbera. It just doesn't have that zippy, zany, loose feeling, and it's not funny. And I don't think it's trying to be funny, that the Flintstones had. I think it's also hurt by the art, which is completely competent, but just kind of lacking in personality. And the colorist seems to have gone with that lacking of personality kind of quality of the art. The artist never makes a mistake or anything like that, and the storytelling's fine, but it's just the way the art looks. It just doesn't appeal to me. So that may hurt it a bit. But we kind of, maybe it's just because we have kind of the gay playwright character as totally noble so far, with no edges or anything. And in the Flintstones, everyone had their flaws and failings, and there was no clear, here's the bad guys, here's the good guys. I mean, there are a few clear bad guys and jerks, but even those would be given their moments of humanity. And it still continues to irk me that the only sort of, quote, homosexual scenes we see are between cartoon animals and humans. So I really think, unless Mark Russell really has a statement to make somehow about, I don't know what kind of statement could he be making by always making the homosexuality interspecies. The fact that it's different species is not addressed here, except that we do, I don't know if we see it in this issue, but it's only humans as actors in the play. And certainly in this conspiracy here, this sort of boardroom scene, everybody is human, and I guess white human. Are humans like Caucasians in the United States? Are they the dominant group, and then animals represent different? I don't know. It just doesn't quite work. There's one of the actors with his fake animal features on. What is he trying to say with that? That's the thing I'm most curious about in this book. Well, and here we get a dog and a African American. I just don't know what Mark Russell is saying here, other than recapitulating the familiar story of the Red Scare, which, you know, if you're liberal, or a certain kind of liberal, you like to look back on that and be horrified. And if you're conservative, I think that's not a period that you would focus on very much. But yeah, the people running the theater are animals, but all the actors are humans. Could we also look at this as, like, you know, Jews running a lot of show business in the United States at some points, but the people on stage are blonde and blue-eyed. I don't know. Although some Jews are blonde and blue-eyed. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to get without getting too complicated here. It's only 6 issues. It's on my pull. I don't know. I can't decide whether to go to the hassle of canceling it. Once I get to the 3-issue mark, then it definitely seems ridiculous not to go all the way. I really like this cover. I did not read Sasquatch Detective at the end. The art was not appealing looking. Maybe I should go back and try and read it. I think it's is it just a bonus story, or is it setting up something that's coming? Was there a Sasquatch Detective in Hanna-Barbera? That rings no bells with me at all. Okay, the other big complaint of mine was this Swamp Thing story by Tom King. And I think I can sum it up by saying the story seemed not to be based in any concrete events or concrete place. What it was a metaphor for was unclear to me. I've seen some people suggest it was all a dream, and I guess that makes sense, but why not indicate in the end more clearly it was all a dream? I still, even as a dream, dream stories are moderately irritating, but I don't even understand how the sort of radio or TV, I think radio narration about a football player relates in any way to the rest of the story. And the art was beautiful, wonderful, the coloring, wonderful. But it was kind of a boring story. I don't know. I felt, in the end, I felt dumb. I just didn't get it. I guess I should reread it. I talked to someone on Twitter who had reread it 3 times, or read it 3 times. And I listened to a podcast where they explained it. But I feel like people are cutting it a lot of slack. I see a bad story. I think Tom King, in his experimentation, went off in the wrong direction here, and someone should have told him, hey, make this a real story. Or maybe I'm just too concrete and other people enjoy super abstract stories, and I need it to be on the page, and I need it to be connected to the world. That this is an adventure or an experience of the Swamp Thing, which has nothing to do with anything. It just frustrates me. I've looked at the unlettered Len Wein story at the back. It has wonderful art. It's sad to think that Len Wein didn't get a chance to do more Swamp Thing. I really hope that DC keeps using lots of what's his name? Kelly Jones. I hope they use a lot of Kelly Jones. His work looks beautiful to me. I love it. But I need, I guess, to read the outline that they provide, that Len Wein gave Kelly Jones to draw this, and then I can follow the story more. Just haven't been in the mood to take that on. It's interesting. This one was $7.99. Oh, I don't have it with me, but and it's an 80-page giant, so that's not a bad price. Then the Monsters in Love was an 80-page giant, and it was $9.99. I don't know why they do that, but I guess they just have their calculations of what they think they can sell things for and what the audience is for it and how many copies they can sell. This is a great cover too. But Jason Fabok clearly would make a great artist on the Swamp Thing if they wanted to do an ongoing. And I guess he's one of those big artists that they probably like to put on big books. Okay, another one, while I'm talking about things that didn't quite satisfy me. Hungry Ghost has a really cool idea about this game people play where they tell increasingly creepy stories and will kill someone, I guess. But I found these short horror stories are a tricky thing, and these seem to be like, if you talk about beats, they seem to be 2 beats, dun dun, and that's it. That's the end of the story. and I needed a story that went dun, 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 or something, 4 beats, and then I might have been happy. But it's like someone does something bad, and then they get killed. End of story. And that's basically, I guess the people didn't get killed in the pirate story, they just got their testicles chewed off. So it didn't make any sense. You know, like this pirate story didn't make any logical sense. Maybe made some emotional sense, but because we start with a woman being thrown off a dock and saying, "No, no, please, no, I do nothing. No, I did nothing." So say we're taking an innocent woman. If she is that same innocent woman, then how is she? It's magical thinking, I suppose. But again, if it just had 1 or 2 more beats to it, it would have been a more satisfying story. And maybe I will get more issues of this because I like the idea. I love horror anthologies, and I do give short stories a certain amount of slack to not be as full or rich as a longer story, of course. But yeah, it just didn't quite. I maybe heard some people on podcasts or other videos raving about it, so maybe I had overly high expectations also. It's a great cover. Speaking of hitting all the story beats, Kill or Be Killed continues to do that. But I do feel annoyed that now there just is every cover going to feature of this second arc or whatever it is. Just like the first arc always featured this guy with a shotgun standing in the night. Now it's always going to feature him in a padded room with a straitjacket on. But the inside makes up for all that. It was another great issue, great twists, taking this same theme, the same sort of simple theme that they built up from the first issue, and continuing to find new ways to twist and turn it over. I really do think of it as the dark mirror side of a superhero story, because superhero stories are always taking the same theme of a vigilante trying to bring justice to the world and turning it over and over. And they've kind of, in this issue, focused on the idea of being obsessed with justice. And the psychiatrist, I love this scene where the psychiatrist's balloons are empty because they've drugged him up. Anyway, and there's a great twist at the end. I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, Kill or Be Killed continues to rock. It's a satisfying read issue by issue, but I'm sure it's a great read in trades too. But sometimes I'm questioning myself with a lot of indie books and image books about why would I buy them floppy, but this delivers a satisfying experience in floppies. Unlike in the Fade Out, I don't read the back matter. It's really just movie reviews, or in this case an article about a TV show that I don't even see much connection, or I haven't really read them, so I could be wrong, but I don't really feel like it adds a lot to my experience. I appreciate they put the articles in here, and maybe sometime I'll read them. I definitely love reading the long letters pages and rambles from Ed Brubaker. So yeah, a really satisfying read. Maybe I'll just do one more because I'm running long now. Mystic U, issue number 2. I saw someone whose opinions I respect say he was not so happy with this issue 2. I did feel it sagged at points, but I felt like the whole was very satisfying, and so by the end of the comic, end of this issue, I was right there. I was really into it. I'm really happy. Even the slower moments, or the moments that didn't seem like they were paying off right away, I felt like it all paid off for me eventually. Each of these characters has appeared somewhere in some form in DC Comics before, and now they've started calling this gloopy character who's recently gained sentience and become a student at Mystic U. They calling him Plop. So I was looking online at covers of Plop, and I don't see one with a creature exactly like this, but I think that he represents Plop magazine. And I love that touch. And he makes this great, comedic character who's also a little bit tragic too. The art by Mike Norton doesn't totally thrill me, and as I look through it here, I can see some of that kind of coloring that turns me off. But I think I was so enthralled by the story, and the art was good enough, told the story well, that I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading it. I think Mystic U, when it's all wrapped up and in a trade, will probably make a great trade read, presuming that the next few issues are just as good. There's Plop. Let's see, does it say how many issues there are? It says book 2. Somehow I'm thinking it's a 4-book thing, but that will make a pretty thick trade, because since each issue is like 48 pages without ads. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it, the way the characters are developing, the romance and such. Maybe the romance part was one of the parts that kind of flagged for a while, but I felt that paid off towards the end. And all the characters have little twists to them, so everybody gets their beat, so to speak. So yeah, really happy with Mystic U. Okay, thanks for making it through 27 minutes with me. I hope to be back soon with a video. You never know. So enjoy your comics. Talk to you all later.
I'm just a sucker who believes in love. You trampled on my broken heart, tried to tear me all apart. Thought I'd just roll up and die, but I'm still standing, I'm still alive. I believe in kisses, I believe in hugs. I'm just a sucker who believes in love. I know there's love at first sight. I think it happens every night. Couples walking, kissing, talking underneath the pale moonlight. I believe in kisses, I believe in hugs. I'm just a sucker who believes in love. I believe in love when I watch TV. I cry at the commercial for AT&T. Just wanna reach out and just a I'm just a sucker who believes in love. I believe in kisses, I believe in hugs. I'm just a sucker who believes in love.
You want to show them the use for Funko Pops that you found?
Don't actually post this video, please don't actually post it.
Oh, really? Okay.